Luigi Mangione back in court today. These are pre-trial hearings, the center of it all. What evidence will be allowed in trial or not? Peter Frankel, former prosecutor and defense attorney, he's with me. Speaking of the broadcast side, you were just on TV, I think in the 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
and
yes.
Now you're here with us to kind of help us break this down. You know, this story, so widespread when it comes to public interest,
Yes.
locally, beyond, internationally, just because of who Luigi Mangione is. When we get down to what's happening in court, can you first differentiate pre-trial from, when we go to trial, layman's terms for us?
Absolutely. So we're in day 7, witness number 11 of these pre-trial hearings.
Right.
And the focus of these hearings is twofold. Number one, physical evidence that was recovered both at the McDonald's where he was arrested and
Right.
back at the precinct where he was processed. Can the prosecution use that evidence at trial down the road?
And we're
That's A.
talking Altoona,
Yes.
Pennsylvania, right? Because
Well, the trial's going to be in New York.
yeah, but we're
right?
talking about the McDonald's there.
Correct. So number one, it's the physical evidence.
Right.
Number two, equally important, all these statements that law enforcement is attributing to Mr. Mangione, things that he said, were his Fifth Amendment rights violated? Was he given his Miranda warnings?
Right.
Were they spontaneous statements? So the judge in this case is going to have to decide whether or not only the physical evidence can be used by the prosecution, but whether the prosecution can elicit testimony from the officers who were present when Mr. Mangione allegedly made these statements. And that would look like officers saying, yes, I was with him and at this time and this is what he said. So it's twofold, and once these hearings are finished, the judge will ultimately issue a written decision
Right.
indicating what, if anything, will be what we call suppressed.
To distill this a little bit more for, people watching that are maybe interested in this but don't have the background or the expertise. When I was in court, because I mentioned we're all kind of covering a piece of this, right? So for pre-trial last week, there was a lot of discussion over will he get a free trial, a fair trial rather, excuse me, and that's what the defense is saying. So with high-profile cases like this, that's an extra consideration. It's something that we've seen. We saw it in the Diddy case, for example.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult because, and we talk about this a lot, because this information is covered so closely by the media,
Right.
even, for example, if some of the evidence is suppressed,
Right.
much of the public has already heard about it. So it's hard to kind of unring that bell and have people forget what they heard because a judge tells them, the prosecution, they can't use the evidence. So what's going to be really crucial here is during what we call voir dire or jury selection, the defense is going to carefully question every potential juror to make sure that they can be fair and impartial,
Right.
that they don't have a bias, that they're not in some way tainted by what they have heard. Not easy to do, but they'll do their best to get that done.
And so this is especially important from what I've learned covering high-profile cases with these types of cases, because there's already, the public discourse with a case like this. I mean, this story has been going viral on social media.
Well, Stephanie, that's exactly right. And
Right.
to your point, there's been a constant battle in the courtroom between the government, the prosecution, and the defense
Right.
about what evidence the judge is allowing to be disseminated to the public, because the defense concern is you're putting all this evidence out, it's photographs, it's video. How are we ever going to get a fair trial for our client when the public already has heard all the evidence?
Right. We're looking at video, that images that we have access to. So we learned in pretrial that there was an ID given, a fake ID. We have an image of that, and we learned that in pretrial. We're looking at that backpack, the search of that backpack. We've been hearing about that in court again and again in pretrial. So the idea here, just to break this down a little further for those watching and listening tonight, is that, look, the jury hasn't been selected yet. So there's people out there that could get called. They'll be carefully vetted, whatever the proper legal terminology is when you're selecting who will sit on the jury. But it's a very, very important component when it comes to the criminal justice system, that the jury, everybody sitting on the jury, is fair and unbiased. And it's really, really hard when, you know, you're turning on the news, you're looking on your phone, and there's discourse about this. I mean, it's hard to be unbiased. And I know this, I'm a journalist, that's my job, but I know that people have biases, even subtle. So this is already a difficult feat, and so that's what the defense is saying.
Yeah, and look, we have, without question, the best criminal justice system in the world, and part of that system involves trusting potential jurors. When you ask them questions, can you be fair and impartial? Can you keep an open mind? Can I count on you to listen only to the evidence from the witness stand, not what you may have heard in the past?
Right.
And we're, you know, it works most of the time.
Right.
Okay.
Everything is flawed. I mean, this is life, right?
Right.
Yes.
But you know, we have this system, and we have to have faith in it.
Right.
It's the only way.
Right. Absolutely. So we're kind of looking at what the defense has been saying, and it's crucial and central to these pretrial hearings, again, is the evidence. For those of you just joining us, we're talking Luigi Mangione. It's a major story for us locally, but also a really big story around the country and beyond. This is making international headlines. So we want to now flip this conversation, and let's talk about the prosecutors. So what are they saying, and what's the comeback, I guess, to, you know, if this is evidence, I'm paraphrasing, but if this is evidence, if this is what the police are saying they collected, this is part of the story of what happened, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the million-dollar question, because the prosecution standpoint has been from day one twofold. Number one, they were concerned that there may have been a bomb or something else in the backpack that could have caused danger. Therefore, there existed what we refer to as exigent circumstances, kind of an emergency situation.
And the backpack, to your point, that's crucial, because the whole thing is, did they need a warrant, right?
That's what the defense is saying. The defense is saying, no, there were no exigent circumstances. You didn't search the backpack for 20 minutes. If you thought it was a bomb, you would have called the bomb squad. You would have cleared the restaurant. You would have done a lot of things that you didn't do. So that's basically pretext. That's an excuse. It wasn't really a bomb. The prosecution has also argued that he gave a false ID. He was going to be arrested for local charges. And in Pennsylvania, there is what you call search incident to arrest. So if you're arrested, the law enforcement can search, you know, whatever your person, whatever you have. That's the law in Pennsylvania. The defense is saying, wait, not so fast. New York law doesn't exactly say that. So they're claiming, no, you had to get a warrant, and
in
therefore
order to check that backpack.
You shouldn't have been able to go through the backpack. Now, there is a lot of evidence that was also recovered at the precinct that's incriminating. I don't see a way for the defense to really attack that evidence, but you know, a lot of people ask, well, if the backpack gets suppressed, is that the end of the case? And the answer is no. There's so much evidence in this case that the prosecution can use. The suppression of what's in the backpack, the gun, the silencer, the manifesto, is not going to be fatal to the prosecution's case.
So another thing the prosecution is essentially saying is, you were getting on this, and then I just wanted to add the context of the backpack, because the warrant part is important for people to really understand, I think. And a lot of this is very complex. I mean, anytime you're dealing with these types of cases. But so the prosecution is also saying about the potential of an explosive or something like this guy was the subject of a manhunt out of New York City, so the cops had to do what the cops had to do.
Basically, you know, they're saying that the cops knew, there was testimony that the cops knew almost right away, or suspected almost right away, that he was the shooter. And therefore, that gave them the ability to look in the backpack because of their safety concern. And the only reason they stopped looking at it was because when they were convinced it was him, They didn't want to lay all the evidence out on the McDonald's table. They wanted to bring it back to the precinct to process it.
So again, this pretrial, this particular case, the evidence is central to what they're talking about in court. But in general, what happens in pretrial, and then what type of timeline are we looking at when we will actually see Mangione have his trial begin?
So, look, we're talking about 25 or so witnesses. It's unheard of, totally atypical. Typically, these pretrial hearings are a handful of witnesses at most. I think the defense is also going to call some witnesses. So, assuming that's all said and done next week, I'm sure that both sides are going to submit written memorandum to the judge arguing their respective sides as to why the evidence should get suppressed or not get suppressed. And then the court is going to take some time and issue a written decision, and that will likely happen sometime in the next few months. Thereafter, a trial date will be set. If I had to guess, I would say maybe sometime in the spring, possibly fall.
So you think we'll see this in 2026?
I think so. I do think
so. Mangione is 27 years old, accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And so you have to understand when you're looking at something like this, as I know you do because of your background and expertise, that it's very hard for there not to be emotions when you look at this through different lenses, right? Because we've heard different narratives in public discourse. So there's the whole concept of, you know, if you've seen that surveillance video of what Mangione is alleged to have done to the United Healthcare CEO, it's like, okay, well, if you're going to kill somebody, then, you know, you got to go through trial and you deserve what you get. So we're hearing that narrative. The other narrative is we've also seen a lot of sympathy for this 27-year-old. And, you know, Lisa Evers, my colleague, who I know you know very well, we were talking about this when pretrial started. We were live there at the courthouse outside. And I said, you know, like, there's young ladies that are in love with this guy. I mean, this has gone viral. It's unique in that way. I mean, we've seen, I related most recently to the Diddy trial. That was another big thing where, I mean, honestly, I'd never seen anything like that in my career outside of the courthouse. There was more influencers and social media people that create content than actual journalists. Almost, it felt like are equally weighted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was involved in that trial. I was in
you
the
know what I'm
courthouse.
talking about.
You know,
yeah.
It was crazy. Same thing here, not to the extent, but you've got a couple of rows in the courtroom of Mangione's supporters.
Yes,
and,
yes.
You know, it's kind of hard. Like, I understand you could take issue with the healthcare system and United Healthcare and so on and so forth, but, you know, Brian Thompson's name is kind of getting lost in the shuffle.
Right.
He's the deceased, he's the victim, and we're not hearing his name all that much.
Yeah.
But the amount of support, be it through GoFundMe's or people in the courtroom or people protesting outside that's going on behalf of Mr. Mangione, it's kind of hard to get your head around.
Yeah, it is. And within your career, I'm sure you've seen, you know, up and down, all different sorts of things. Do you think that there is, when these narratives are swirling before trial, do you think that the defense in cases like this has an extra leg to say, look, is this really fair? As this continues, like, could we hear them come up with that at some point in the trial again? Like, do you know what I mean?
I do. I do. Not likely.
Yeah.
You know, it's an open courtroom. It's a public trial. Whoever wants to come down, as long as they behave themselves, is allowed to come down.
Right.
So, you know, it's not really part of the evidence. It's what's going on after the fact. So I don't think we'll hear much about that during the hearings or trial. But
we're hearing a lot of
it's a part of the process.
It is, but you're saying we're hearing a lot. You're saying that we're hearing a lot about this now because they gotta pick the jury, and that's why we're hearing a lot about this right now in pretrial.
It's a very astute point on your part. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
I do.
All right. Well, Peter Frankel, we always appreciate your insight. You're always so thorough in your interviews.
Thank you.
And I know we'll be talking to you again many times on this topic as we continue to cover it.
Look forward to it.